Hey, Brian Thomas here, and recently I was asked a question on the Timberking Facebook group. And if you haven't checked out the Timberking owners group and the Facebook group there, it's a really great resource to find a whole lot of information about Timberking sawmills, talk to other Timberking owners, and people post pictures. I mean, I know Tom recently just posted a picture where he dropped a giant log on his sawmill after it fell off his skid steer and crushed his mill. So good luck to him in trying to fix that. But the question that came up is, I was talking about the 2220 mill here and the differences between it and a 2020. So in the background there, you'll see my 2000 mill. And for all intents and purposes for this review, this discussion, we're going to talk the 2000 and the 2020 are basically the same, and I'll talk to the few differences that there are, but for the most part, they're basically the same. My main objective of this video is to talk about the differences of these two mills. Now, they do make, Timberking, that is, they do make a larger mill, the 2520, and really the 2520 is this mill on steroids with a little bit larger engine and a few extra features, as in 2 log stops and 2 log turners. But for all intents and purposes, the 2220 and the 2520 are pretty much the exact same. The only difference, like I said, is just a little more power and those 2 extra additional, the turner and then the log stop. But we're going to talk about the differences between these two mills. Is it worth the price? There is a large price gap between these two. I think the individual said there's something around the neighborhood of $20,000 or maybe more than that. So first things first, if you're looking at the base model 2000 or the 2020, excuse me, it comes with a gas engine. This right here, the 2220, comes standard with a 50 horsepower Kubota diesel. This thing is a beast of a motor compared to a gas engine. So there's really not a great comparison. Most of that cost difference that you're seeing between the 2020 and the 2220 is in that engine alone. I mean, that engine alone, I don't know the exact numbers, but it would not surprise me if that engine's upwards of $17,000 to $18,000 just for the engine. I'm not 100% sure of the numbers, but I know that they are not cheap. It's a Kubota diesel. They are good diesels, and they're expensive for a reason, because they're about the best out there. Okay, so first things first, the major differences between these two mills from the eye, just looking at it from the eye, of course, is going to be that is a single axle. This is a tandem axle. So right off the bat, this mill is heavier, but also this gives you the extra comfort of having a second axle there. If you're ever traveling on the road and everything, and don't get me wrong, the 2000 or the 2020, they tow phenomenal. But if you ever have a blowout, that could be a really, really bad day. This gives you a little more peace of mind with that tandem axle. Also, there's a length difference. Now, our mill here has been modified. We modified our mill to cut an additional foot. Our mill will actually cut 25 foot 3 inches without having to modify any hydraulic lines or without having to worry about turn radiuses. But 24 foot is what the 2220 will cut. 21 foot is what the 2000 mill will cut, or the 2020 mill will cut. So right there you have the addition of 3 feet. 3 feet doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. And take, for example, this log right here. This log we're cutting right here is 22 foot. Yes, you could cut it on that mill. There are a few tricks and everything, but it's a pain in the butt, and you're running the risk of having things go wrong and it's really, did the cost outweigh the gains? I don't know. So the extra length on this is actually kind of a big deal. And as you can see, we added a 1 foot extension because we had a job one time where they required 25 foot long beams, and I said, you know what, screw it, let's just add essentially about $300 and something worth of parts here and labor, add this extension, and it more than paid for itself. So again, going back to differences, I'm going to show you the similarities and the differences. But the similarities, the log loaders are about the same. Now, I believe this one actually has a higher capacity pump or something. They said these ones will lift more than the 2020 mill, but for the most part, really the deck is your limiting factor. Both of them say do not exceed over 5,000 pounds on the deck. I've had close to 5,000 pounds on there, but once you get over 5,000 pounds, you're talking about a monstrosity of a log, and you're talking about a lot of stress. I really wouldn't go anything higher than that. So let's just say the loading arms are about the same. The log turner and the log dog are about the same. The toe boards are different. The toe boards here on this right here can lift up quite a bit more. Now I have the older style toe boards on a 2001, and the new 2020 I believe did make a modification to those, but it's nothing major. It's not like these. These ones right here are massive. These suckers can lift up almost 9 inches, I believe. But there are a few downsides too. If you look at the spacing, and so these are on a pivot arm, they pivot up, but they're outside of that bunk and this bunk right here. Well, they're just outside of 8 feet, like just outside of 8 feet. Whereas on my 2000 mill, they're inside of 8 feet, so I can lift up 8 feet stock. My buddy Rick, who has a 2520, what he did on his mill, and this, you can do this on any 2220 or 2520, he took this arm right here and turned it around to the inside. And by doing so, or it might have been the other arm. Yeah, it might have been that one. Anyways, one of these is flip-flopped around so that he can handle stock that's less than 8 feet in length. So that's kind of a weird thing, but at the same time, the capacity that these things have, these are a much larger ram on there. These can lift a lot more, and there's a lot more maneuverability, flexibility. Like these can lift up a whole lot more than what I can lift up on my 2000 mill over there. Again, the biggest difference is going to be back here in the head, and we're going to show you this engine, and we're going to walk over here in a second and see mine. On all Timberking sawmills, actually I think even the 1620, but we're not really speaking about that. We're going to talk about their fully hydraulic mills. The 2020 and above all have the exact same head. Timberking made this design change for one simple reason. All their mills now are essentially going to run one size of blade. And doing that makes it easier for people ordering blades, and it makes them easier for them when they're having to get their blades manufactured. So they're dealing with one standard size. They standardized their product line, which is awesome. Also, that's a benefit to all of us, the users, because they have increased the cutthroat capacity. It used to be 35 inches on the older mills. Now it's 38 inches. So they squeezed another 3 inches out of there. They tuck everything in there. So the 2020 and above, and the 1620 I believe does as well, but the 2020 and above all cut 38 inches wide, and you still have that 16-inch cutthroat. So you have the largest cutthroat standard, I think, out there. That's pretty amazing. The carriage on this compared to my carriage is larger. I don't know how much larger it is, but it is larger. I do have the diesel option on my engine, but compared to a gas engine, the gas engine carriage, it looks small. There's no other way to put it. But this carriage, actually I gotta zoom this thing out so you can see it. This carriage is absolutely massive because you have a massive engine up there. This engine, I believe, weighs over 400 pounds. It's a 3-cylinder Kubota diesel. And again, that's where a large portion of your money is being spent, is on this diesel. I'm gonna hop up on there and show you what diesel engine it is, and kind of talk about what these number combinations mean as well. We were just running this engine, so she's a little bit warm right now. Okay, so it's a D1803T. So D in the Japanese language means 3. So this is a 3-cylinder diesel. The 1803 means the cubic centimeters. So that's 1,803 cc's. And then the T, of course, stands for this thing right here, turbo. Yeah, where's that? Here's your little turbo right there. So this engine alone is just a monster of an engine. And compared to the 25 horse diesel that is on the 2000 or the 2020, this thing doesn't bat an eye. And that's really what you're paying for. The 2020, yes, you can run a small business off of it, and it is commercial grade, if you will. This is industrial grade. This is no joko. This engine will not bat an eye while you're cutting with it. I have never been able to bog this thing down. And I've also run the 2520. I don't think that thing would ever bog down as well. It's just stupid amount of power. I think it's 65 horse, and then this one here is 50. 50 horses on a sawmill like this, it just doesn't slow down. And you can see, I mean, we have some monster logs out there. I would hate to cut a red oak log that looks to be almost 30 inches in diameter. I would not like to cut that on my 2000 mill. It would just be, you know, the whole time you kind of listen to the engine tune and everything, and you're just hoping that, you know, you don't bog her down too much. And not that it's going to bog down too much, but it's going to be a slow cut. This thing here, on the actual computer screen, you'll see the torque percentage usage. You probably won't even get over 70%. It's insane how much power this thing has. So there's that. You have the same pump setup. So this is the same pump that's on the 2000 or 2020 and above. It's a two separate pumps that run off of one shaft, and that controls your hydraulics in your left and right side. Let me hop down here real quick. So your left hydraulics are controlled by one of those pumps, and your right hydraulics are controlled by the other. You can do either operation at the same time. So I like that. On the 1600 mil, you're running one pump, and you've got one of these banks right there, and that's all you've got. But once you get to the 2020 and above, you have two banks, and it's awesome. So again, what I'm getting at is the largest difference is this engine and the length of cut and the tandem axle. That is your main difference. So you've seen this mill here. Now we're going to go over and walk to my mill and show you the log dogs. The log stops are the same. There are 4 on this one. There are 4 on mine. The log dog is the same. We've actually added this little neat contraption right here, which allows us to clamp less than 5 inches, and I'll talk about that as well. The log turner is the same. I was just checking the spacing on the teeth and everything, and it appears to be the same. The blocks are probably the same too. I'll have to look at that. But again, it's the length, it's a tandem axle, it's the engine, and then also with the engine, you also have all the controllers that go with it. And also, unfortunately, based on our day and age right now, anything over 25 horsepower requires to have an EGR and a diesel particulate filter. This does have an EGR and diesel particulate filter. However, I've never had an issue with it. She runs great, and she's got, like I said, stupid amount of power. This thing has more power than you really ever need in a sawmill. All right, going over here to the 2000 mil, which we're going to say is essentially the same as the 2020 mil. The differences is that the older style here, the 2000, can only do a cut of 35 inches wide, whereas the new 2020 can do 38 inches. So that's really the biggest difference. I think they may have also designed a little bit different toe board setup, but these toe boards right here, as you can see, are much smaller. Your log stops are the same. Your log dog is the same. And your turner, same spacing, it looks to be the same as well. So again, oh, and the frame on these is the same too. Once you get to these larger mills, essentially they're commercial grade and higher, they're all running the same frame. And if you look, you see the same documentation right here. Do not overload, 5,000 pound limit for the deck and everything. But again, a 5,000 pound log is massive. Looking at the carriage here, right here, you see this one looks to be a little bit smaller. But the biggest thing is, look at that itty bitty diesel. Now I say itty bitty diesel, this thing has plenty of power. I can cut the same size log, quote unquote, as what my dad can cut on his mill. They can both handle a 39-inch diameter log. Now this one right here can only do a cut throat, a cut of 35 inches wide, whereas the other one can do 38. All it was is just manipulation of some pieces and parts and how far in the guides bearing can push in. But for the most part, they're practically the same. There's no tandem axle, but really when it gets down to it, what I'm trying to say, it's the long roundabout way. They can both cut essentially the same things between the 2020 and the 2220, but the 2220 is going to do everything faster. You're not going to be waiting on your engine revs or anything like that when you're cutting through the big stuff. The 2220 and the 2520, literally there's more engine there than you will ever use. It's just amazing how much engine is there and how much is at your disposal. Like, you can just fly through the stuff. So if you're running a small business, the 2020 or the 2000 mil, that's really all you need. If you're running it, you know, you're a one-man operation, that's fine and dandy. That's pretty much all you need. The 2220 and above That's if you're running, I'm talking a full out setup where you have multiple people, or you are just doing mass production of cross ties or mass production of big logs and stuff like that. The controls, as you see, they're all the same. The differences here is I have this analog control box for the starting of my engine and everything. And on the 2220 and above, they have a digital control panel that can allow you to go in there and change ramp up speeds for your engine. You can change what your idle speed is, what your max speed is. You can change and input information there for intervals of cycle on your oil changes, intervals of cycles for your hydraulic change. There's so many different things you can do on the computer. But what I'll say, one thing I like about this mill, I turn this key, I hit the start button, and she cranks like right away. On the 2220 and above, you actually have to turn the key on, go through a 30+ second boot up screen, and then you can hit the start button. So it gets kind of like annoying, if you will, and your throttle and everything's controlled on the computer panel here, whereas my throttle is controlled by a simple switch down here. So I'm not bashing either one. I love them both, but they both serve a different purpose. This would be a great mill if you're going to tackle, any job for yourself, your friends, and your local community. It'll do anything you want it to do. And it may not be the fastest, but that engine there, that's the V1505D. So that's a V in the Japanese language means 4. So it's a 4-cylinder 1505 cc engine, and D, it's just naturally aspirated. It's a diesel. There's no turbo on this model right here. The 2220 though, again, this is more for you are doing a full-on operation, you have multiple people working with you, or you're just a person who wants to just do everything faster and just have all that extra power at your disposal. So this mill right here, we got this for my dad. This is good. This is his kind of like a retirement job right now, as he's cutting wood, and he cuts a lot more than I do. He's had this mill for just over a year. I want to say he has 270 hours on it, 280 hours, something like that. I've had my mill for just over 2 years, and I have 447 hours on it. So he's been really just plowing through, getting everything done with this mill, and he's been doing very well. This thing is amazing. The extra capacity and the length that it has is a huge payoff for the market that we're in. We do a lot of stuff with the big beams and posts and stuff like that, so really helps out him. They're both fantastic mills. In my opinion, Timberking is probably the best manufacturer of sawmills out there, not only for their equipment, but also their customer service. You cannot beat that. I am not sponsored by Timberking, but I do consider myself an ambassador to their company because I believe in their equipment. I have owned 8 sawmills. So, and in fact, this sawmill right here, my 2000 mill, is already sold. And this Sunday in July, this is the end of July, what is that, like the 23rd or 23rd, 24th, whatever. I think it's 23rd. Whatever it's going to be this Sunday is when my new 2020 mill will be delivered. So very much looking forward to getting the new mill. And people are asking me, why are you switching from a 2000 mill, which is essentially a 2020, to a 2020? Well, the biggest thing is because Timberking standardized their blades, I need to standardize my blades with what my dad's running so we can run the same size blades and everything. And when we do the carbide testing, I can only run it on this mill because it's a different size blade than on the 2000. So that's my main reasoning, is we are just switching to have the exact same blade, because I was really a big fan of when Timberking did that to standardize all their blades for their larger mills. So yeah, fantastic machines. They both cut a ton of wood. This one will just cut it faster, we'll cut it longer, and it does have a few extra things, like the tandem axles are really nice to add. You can also upgrade Mr. Atkins. He's got a 2020 mill. He opted to get the tandem axle on his mill, and that would be a really cool upgrade. I really wanted to do that on mine as well, but it just didn't work out that way with timing and everything, and trying to get that order modified. It would have just pushed me further back in line. So it's all good. They both run the same computer system. They just, again, this one just does it a lot quicker. It's got so much power and it can do the length. That one will do the same thing, probably a little more efficient on the fuel and everything because it is, again, less cubic inches that you're feeding fuel to. But it will do, they'll cut the same thing, it's the speed. And we'll show, at the end of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and show the speed at which this one cuts and the speed at which that one cuts, because we're gonna be cutting 2 jobs this afternoon. So again, please like, subscribe. I'll throw in a little bit of video of the speed differences, but those are your main differences. We'll see you around, thanks. Okay, so we have both mills running. I'm working on this poplar job here. My dad's running the 2000 mil over on that Cedar job. And I will say one thing is the sound difference. My engine isn't as loud as his engine. You know, they both do phenomenal cutting. This one's just a little bit slower. This one's got a little bit of a kind of a lower pitch to the actual sound of the engine. It doesn't sound like it's, you know, it's got a nice throaty 4-cylinder sound. I like the way that sounds. The 2220 mil, it's a little bit higher pitch, which is weird, but man, when you throttle this thing up, so here's a little computer thing. It just has a higher pitch to it. And this one's also running at higher RPM. We're running this one about 2,500 RPM when she's full open. And on the other mill, we're running at about 2,200 RPM. And that's actually because you have to stay below that 25 horsepower. And if you know the equation for horsepower, it goes into RPM times torque and stuff like that. You get your horsepower. Here's a good example. My dad's using the toe boards on here. As you can see, he's got that toe board lifted up because he's trying to level out this cedar log right here. But as you can see, the throw is not really that high on here. You've got a couple inches. It'll go up a little bit higher, but not too much. It's enough just for him to level this out. And then he's going to go ahead and engage the clutch here in a second. But see, this one's just got a throatier, you know, quieter sound. And he's going to go ahead and hit the turner on it just a little bit, I guess, straighten it up. See, that's the cool thing with a bi-directional turner. It allows you to kind of pull the log down as needed to get it where it needs to be. Both these mills, the hydraulics, especially for the log dog in and out, are pretty quick. And then the loading arms, I have talked to a few people about that. The loading arms, they are kind of slow, and that's all right. It's just, yeah, that's one of the guys. He says he's got a 2220, and he says he spends quite a lot of time with the loading arms. But I don't use the loading arms that much because we load with our tractor. Okay, so you saw, I'm gonna do this kind of one-handed best I can. You saw how much that one lifted over there. It would lift a little bit more for the toe boards. I'm gonna show you how high this one will lift for the toe boards. Rear toe board, look at that, folks. That is massive. Being able to lift up that high is absolutely crazy. I mean, that's over 8 inches of lift right there. Yeah, that's huge. So, little differences. Again, this one just does it faster, but they both cut phenomenal things. Now we're gonna hear him. He's engaged it over there. We're gonna go back over there, and you can hear him cutting. And I'll have to set up the camera over here with mine so you can hear it cutting. But it just powers through it. Now this is cedar. Cedar's really easy to cut, but it doesn't sound too bad. This one just seems like it has a throatier, deep sound. I don't know what it is about it. I like it. I like them both. So let me go ahead and get this mill going right here. Set up the camera. You hear this one too. This should be a pretty good angle so you can see both mills at the same time. Okay, so there you have it. There's a little bit of dueling sawmills, and people are asking like, what the heck is he cutting? I'm actually cutting 6x10s out of this. I need to get as close to center cut as I can. And my dad's cutting 6x6 cedar posts. That will be for his new wood drying shed that we are building. So yeah, all in all, fantastic sawmills. If you're looking at a sawmill and you want to run a business, I would suggest nothing but a fully hydraulic sawmill. And follow the channel and everything, you'll see I like the Timberkings. There's a couple reasons why. The vertical log stops, you get that on the 2000 above, they are a must. The bidirectional log turner, that's a must. The computer setworks is a must. And last but not least, like, the customer service offered by Timberking is just bar none the best, because you will, having owned this sawmill and everything, I can tell you from experience, you will come in situations where things break on the sawmill, or you break down. But the Timberking team is a very responsive team, and they actually care about their customers. I'm not bashing any other customer, but in my opinion, they've been the best. I've dealt with two of the other big names out there and have not been impressed. So I will say I'm very happy with my decision to stay with Timberking, and I could not be happier. So hope you found this interesting. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you around. Thanks.